back, listeners, to BizBlend, the podcast where bold minds blend business brilliance with inner mastery. I'm your host, Sana, and today's conversation is for the trailblazers, the creatives, the ones who dream with their eyes wide open and feel the friction of invisible barriers on the way to greatness. Listeners, I'm thrilled to welcome Carolina Zuleta, a powerhouse executive coach who has not only walked away from the Wall Street with purpose, but now she helps visionary entrepreneurs and creatives unlock their full potential. With an MBA from the University of Chicago and over 10,000 hours of coaching experience, Carolina blends strategic thinking with deep inner work, and exactly the blend I love here. We all love here on this blend. And as someone who deeply values alignment between ambition and energy, I have seen how success isn't just a skill, it's about navigating the unseen. So, whether it's mindset blocks, an emotional baggage, or energetic leaks, these are the hidden forces that either lift us up or weigh us down. And today we are going there, listeners. So, buckle in, grab your favorite cup of beverage, and this episode isn't just about business, it's about unlocking the force within. So, with that, Carolina, welcome to the show, and it's such an honor to have you with us.
Sana, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very excited to have this conversation with you.
Lovely, lovely. So, Karina, to begin with, you have worked with both artists and Fortune 500 execs. So, what consistent mindset shift do you find is non negotiable for visionaries aiming for scalable impact?
That's a great question. And I think that more than just one specific mindset, I think there's a couple of things.
Mhm.
So let me share with you, like, I think the most significant and important.
Okay.
One is the idea of victimhood versus being empowered. As human beings, there's a lot of things we can't control, right? And when we coach, we call these things we can't control our circumstances. But there are so many things that we can control, and most of it is related to the way we think about what's happening and how we're feeling and how we process those emotions. So for me, the mindset of going from like life is happening to me, right? And it happens at all levels in different ways, but really being very mindful of when am I giving my power away to circumstances? When am I giving my power away to other people? When am I giving my power away to moments where I failed versus staying with my power, understanding that no matter what happens in my life, no matter what happens in my business, in my project, the way I look at it, the way I think about that situation, the story I tell myself will determine my next step and my next step. Right before I jumped in this call with you, I was talking with a COO who's been a COO for 5 years, and she's thinking about quitting her job
Mm-hmm.
because of some misunderstandings or disagreements with the CEO. And we were talking about what is the story she's going to tell herself when she's leaving this company, because that story is what's going to determine what's next. So that part of being moving from giving our power to other things, victimhood, to staying empowered, that is huge, and that happens all the time in small things and big things. And the other part that is related to this, and I think it's very important, especially for visionaries and for people who are highly ambitious, who want to create, who might not are who are not thinking about walking a traditional career path, but are more trying to be important, significant leaders, make a difference in the world,
Yeah.
is their relationship to failure. Because failure is not going to be optional. It's not about what can I do to avoid failure, is how do I prepare myself for it? How am I ready for when I make mistakes that I couldn't predict, when, the economy goes south and what I had planned is not working, when, there's so many ways that we can fail or make mistakes, and how am I going to build the resilience to overcome those moments? I think if you have those two mindsets of finding your own power and being able to navigate this failure, you'll become unstoppable.
I agree. I completely agree with you. Wow, such a beautiful answer, Carolina. And also I So I also, a year back, I decided to take a break. And not a much illustrious career, but 10 years in corporate. So I decided to take a break, take a pause, and then I got into this journey of podcasting. So I have noticed in my ventures that the biggest wins, they did not come from tactics, but from mastering my mental game. And I'm really curious, how you see that play out across different industries, Karina. So what you have to say about that?
I mean, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
One of the fundamental philosophies of my coaching, I call it who before how.
Mhm.
Most of the people in the world are asking, how do I become successful at podcasting? How do I get more guests? How do I get paid for this? How do I grow an audience? And yes, those are important questions to ask ourselves. But if we don't ask first, who do I have to be a successful podcaster? Who do I have to make X amount of money a year? Who do I have to be to achieve this goal that right now seems impossible? Who do I have to become? The how is irrelevant. How the internet is full with tutorials and maps and frameworks, right? And you can really, most of them work, but it depends. What makes them work is you, who you are being. And when I say who you're being, is what are you believing about yourself? What are you thinking about most of the day? How kind are you being with yourself when things don't work out? How willing are you to continue in the fight for as long as it takes? Because I think it's this part of who we are is fundamental, especially in a world that, when we're in social media, we're just seeing people who are successful. Like it seems like, oh, they started yesterday and now they're successful, right? There's this culture of getting rewards fast and being successful when the reality, I'm telling you this because for coaching for, I don't know how long it's been now, 15 years, and working with so many entrepreneurs and business people and creatives, like nothing is an overnight success. Okay, maybe one in a million. I don't know. Maybe there's that extreme rare case. But for most of us, it is the staying in the game and really evolving what I call our self concept, which is the way we think about ourselves, our beliefs, our abilities, our skills, evolving those so we can continue to succeed. So, this idea of who, right? Who regarding our mindset, our beliefs before the how is for me is the really the key to all of it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you, Kalina, because I 100%, maybe more than that, if there was any other numeric system, I believe that, overnight success, yes, it can be rewarding, but it may not be sustainable because if you are working for it and you are hoping that, okay, overnight I'll get an instant success, you kind of lose yourself in that entire journey because that it's kind of an addiction and you kind of lose yourself into it. So you absolutely hit the you know hit the park when you mentioned that it's more important to understand, identify, and be aware about who are you. So moving on with that, um in your experience, Carolina, what are the most common unseen forces, maybe emotional, energetic, or systemic, that block even the most talented entrepreneurs from reaching their vision?
I love that question. Okay, so here's what I have noticed and what I have seen over and over again.
Mhm.
When we commit to creating something, when we decide, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grow a business from 0 to $1 million, from, 1 million to 10 millions, whatever our goal is. Or I'm going to launch this product that has never been seen before, or whatever our vision is, whatever we're going to do. We get very excited at the beginning, right? Like it's like, oh my God, it's so exciting. We're thinking about how we're gonna be successful. And that gives us some energy to start going for it.
Mhm.
And then we start hitting roadblocks. And then we start hitting obstacles. And then we start meeting people who tell us, oh, that's not that a great idea. I don't think that's gonna work. Here's why it's not gonna work. There's 10 million people doing the same thing that you're doing. And we start hearing all this. And that starts creating some tension in our body, some fear, we're gonna name it that way. But I think it's more like this tension. And we start taking steps and then things don't work and things break and things, are not, I was talking with another client who sells consulting, financial consulting, and it's like, oh, I had 25 calls with potential clients and everyone said no, right? So we start feeling that tension. And what a lot of people do is change paths, bring the goal down, make something to release that tension because the tension is very uncomfortable in our bodies. And many of us are not even conscious that that's what's driving it. But it's like, oh, I don't want to feel this, right? So we switch paths. We were like, you know what, instead of, selling online, I'm gonna sell person to person instead of, doing this movie because I work with creatives, we're gonna start doing this TV show. And then they go another path and the same thing happens. We get very excited. We see all the possibilities and then we start working on it and then things start breaking and then people start telling us why it's not going to work and we start getting rejection. We start facing failure and then we're like, oh no, this is not, let's go back to the first idea, right?
Yeah.
So that can take years, right? Like going from this thing to the next thing. And then we start looking around and saying like, oh my God, I'm not successful. I don't have it in me. Or it doesn't work for me. And I think that not learning to be with that tension is what, even the most incredible people, they still have more potential to pursue. They still have bigger ideas to pursue, but what holds them back, what at some point in the road holds them back is not being able to navigate that tension and stay with it and be with it and remind ourselves that we are capable of being with all that uncomfortable emotions and energy that doesn't feel good in our body.
Hmm. Makes sense, Carolina. Uh, let's put a bit of a contradictory aspect to this. Some would argue that mindset is overrated. They would simply say just work harder and stay focused, and the results will come. So, what's your take on this mindset versus the inner mastery you advocate for?
Well, I don't think it's one or the other, right? Like it can't be just like, oh, I'm gonna sit here and bliss myself with positive thoughts and meditation and being present, like, and then pretend that things are gonna happen. No, we live in a material world. We have to work for it. We have to get better at it. We have to develop our skills, our talents, build connections. All those things that take action. So I don't think it's one or the other. I don't even know why we have to put them against each other. I think it's both complement each other, right? Let's say, for a lot of entrepreneurs, me included, when I started my business, one of the toughest things was learning to sell, right? I had been in business, I had a business degree, all I had been coaching, but I had been coaching within a corporation. I had never faced the, hey, you want to hire me as your coach, right? Like conversation. And sales is tough, emotionally, energetically, but there's also a skill to it, right? So it wasn't just about me believing like I'm gonna make a sale, I'm gonna be very good at this, people are gonna love me, but it was me about wait a moment, take a step back. How do I sell? What are the strategies? What are the tactics? But my mindset allowed me to pursue that education. My mindset of saying, like, hold on, there's a skill I need to develop. There's nothing wrong with me. It's not that I'm not capable of doing this. Of course I am. I just need to learn how. So then that mindset of, again, using my power back to myself, what I was saying, of staying empowered and being like, okay, this is not working. Who can I ask for help? What course can I take? What book can I read? Who can give me feedback about the way I'm doing this? That mindset of allowing myself to not be perfect, to be in a constant process of growth, then it took me to the education. And then those skills that I learned in because I took a class on how on entrepreneurial selling and I learned a lot of strategies and tactics and then I started applying them. And you know what happens at the beginning? They don't work. They don't work because I'm new at it and I'm just learning. So then being able my mindset comes in again and tells me like, "Oh, it doesn't work. I'm just not good at that." That's one mindset. Or, it's not working. I wonder where am I making a mistake? Let me get someone who can give me feedback, who can listen to my sales calls. So I think it's not an either or, it's a this and that. It's our mindset and our skill development. It's our mindset and our hard work. And I think that hard work, for sure, we when we're starting something, we work hard, but working hard doesn't necessarily mean more hours, which I think
Yeah.
we tend to confuse those two. People say, I worked so hard, I worked 80 hours. Yeah, but what did you produce in those 80 hours? I think work hard is, I worked 5 hours, but here's how much I produced. I didn't allow myself to stay distracted. I did the hard things first. I, right, like I I used my brain to really think of the answer to this problem. So for me, working hard is not more hours. Working hard is doing the thing we need to do to produce the results we want. And sometimes that might mean that, this weekend, I usually never work on the weekends. And we have something special going on for my business on Saturday. My husband took my two girls and I went to a coffee shop and I'm like, I'm just gonna get this done 3 hours. And I gave myself 3 hours and I did not even blink. Those 3 hours I was like focused and I got it done. So
Mm.
sometimes it might mean more hours, of course, but it's not the rule. It doesn't mean that working hard means working 80 hours, 70
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah. True. True. I completely agree with you. And it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So
Yeah. Yes.
also and this I used to believe this. I've also worked in the sales um, you know, uh, area. And oftentimes when things did not work in my favor, I didn't used to end up with the expected numbers. I used to always console myself, telling, okay, trust the process, trust the process. Let's just continue with this. Let's not give up. And then I used to lean into the unknown. So but at what point do you think, Carolina, does surrender turn into passivity or self sabotage?
Yes. Um, that is a really profound conversation because, again, right, like when this tension I was talking about, when things are not going the way we want, that you didn't meet the numbers as a salesperson. We want to do something to release that tension. And a lot of us say, well, it wasn't just the right moment, maybe it wasn't the right time, like the planets weren't aligned, something like that. And yes, when we tell ourselves those stories, they release that tension. So they help for that. But I also think that it's very important to extract value from our failures, right? So, okay, I didn't meet the numbers last month or last quarter. Well, I have multiple options here. I can beat myself up, right? Which is another path a lot of us take. I'm terrible at this. I'll never succeed. This is awful. Why am I doing this? Right. And then we lose tons of energy from our own self criticism. Another one is let me release the tension by giving myself a story that just does that. You know what? I don't know. Yeah, this quarter, the economy did this or this happened in the business. Nobody else achieved their goals. Whatever the story we tell ourselves to release it. But in both of those examples, right, criticizing ourselves or just simply relieving the tension, we're not learning anything. We're not getting better at anything. I think it's the much better idea is to go back and do a review and be like, okay, I didn't meet my goals. First, let me write all the actions I took. I did this, it is this. Okay, now let me write all the actions I knew I could have done, but I didn't do. So I didn't ask for feedback. I didn't really push myself to make that extra call. I didn't I didn't address these objections. I didn't ask for the sale in a very defined way or more assertive way, right? Like, okay, got it. I'm not gonna beat myself up. I'm a process, I'm in process. I'm always growing. Always learning. I am gonna, give myself a hug and be like, yes, you know what, this weekend, take it off. That was tough. But then Monday morning, I'm gonna get all these lessons and I'm gonna do it better.
Yeah. Yes.
So surrender, I think surrender is a beautiful thing when you're like, truly, if I'm being honest with myself, I did everything and all of it, and I did my best. And then, like I'm gonna surrender. And then I'm gonna learn more and I'm gonna get better at it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. And I also want to uh, take this from a perspective of an entrepreneur. So, entrepreneurs, they're no stranger to failures. Many of them have multiple ventures, failed, then they again got up and built something new from scratch. So, what do you think here? I mean, is it okay to keep working on something which may not in the long run be fruitful, or it's something bound to fail, but we are still trying it because we feel, okay, let's just give it time, let's not give up? Or is it okay to be mindful or be aware about, okay, if this is not working, let me just prepare myself for pivoting to something new?
So it's a very nuanced
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Right? There's no black and white. And here's what I tell my clients. Number one, the best place to quit something, to say, okay, it's not gonna work anymore, is when I decide I don't want this anymore. Truly. It's not from like, oh, it didn't work. Well, it was hard. The economy was hard. It's like I don't want this business anymore. And some years ago, I worked for another company and that's what the founders decided. They're like, you know what, we don't want this business anymore. And they closed it. And they went on, both of them, to build other businesses that were more aligned with their values, their desires, all that. So I think that's deciding I want this business or I don't want this business is very important. I don't think that the attitude of, oh, well, let's give it more time is the right one, because time is not the thing that resolves a business. Time is not what makes a business profitable. It's
Mhm.
you as the entrepreneur. So if you still like this business and you're still like, I still want to do this business. I still want to be, in your case, Sana, be successful at podcasting.
Mhm.
Saying, I'm gonna give it more time. The question I would ask myself is, what can I learn? What am I not seeing? Because most businesses, there's an example of a business very similar that it is being successful, right? In my world of coaching, there's hundreds of thousands of coaches. When I started 15 years ago, there were not as many as today. And there are some that are making, one of my mentors makes 60, $70 million a year in coaching.
Mhm.
And then I have a bunch of friends that I've made in the coaching industry that can't get up from 60, $70,000 a year. Why? Is it because coaching is not a good idea? Is it because coaching is not a good business? Or is it because there's different abilities, skills, and mindset that have allowed, Brooke, my mentor, to make $70 million a year, and my other friends make 50 or 60? And I see that in a lot of what I see it in the most is the way people are thinking, their ability and willingness to take bigger risks, to put themselves out there in a bigger way, to fail more often, but learn from those failures. So if you're in a moment that you're like, "Ah, I don't know, this business is not working, maybe I'll give it more time." I promise you, time is not, it's not what's gonna solve it. It's you. So if you decide I still want this business, I would hire people to teach me. I would bring consultants to look, what can I do differently? Like, and that's what I've done in my business for the last 10 years. I think like that's why we've been able to continue to grow and be successful, is because every time we hit a plateau, I'm always looking like, what am I missing here? What am I not doing? And I find the people who are the most successful to help me figure it out. And then they give me this advice and it sounds crazy to me and scary. And at the beginning I do it and I play it small, and then I get stronger and more courageous and I fail and then I learn, and then it's like boom, we move to the next level. Does that does that answer your question, Sana?
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that answer, Kalina. And definitely, I mean, you absolutely, proved the blending of strategic thinking with deep inner work as well. Rightful alignment, your business or maybe the work you are doing, it aligns with your values. And time is really not the factor here. It's you. You have to work on yourself. For that, you bring consultants or coaching, or you go for a mentoring, and uh, obviously, I mean, there is no point at which you feel like, okay, that's it. I know need not learn anything new right now. because I think learning is irrespective of the field you are in, the age you are in. Uh, you learn from your mistakes, failures, adversities, and then once again you get into the battlefield, because the warrior mindset is what exactly how it works. So I absolutely loved your answer.
I'm glad.
Okay, and also you talk about helping leaders stay energized, focused, and in control of their success. So, um, would you like to share any rituals or practices, or maybe mindset anchors that you find most effective for sustaining this? Especially during high growth, high stress growth phases.
Mhm. Yeah, so, you know, I think rituals are very personal, and I think that each person has to discover what they work for themselves. And definitely with my clients, I look into some of those, but they're very specific to each person. And here's what I also know in this question you're asking me.
Mhm.
In order for us to start a business, to take a business to the next level, we need energy. We need capacity within ourselves to be able to do that.
Okay.
And a lot of times what happens is like, oh my gosh, I'm so burnout and I want to grow this business. Like, but you're already in deficit, like if you're feeling that level of exhaustion, of burnout, of, tiredness, you don't have it in you in this moment to take your business to the next level. So the first thing you need to figure out is how to solve for your energy. And I could talk hours about this topic because our energy, our capacity to do things, we live in a society where being tired has become, I don't know, you tell me where you are, Sana, but I know in the US, definitely talking about, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. It's almost like a badge of honor. Like, oh, I'm so tired. That means I'm doing things well.
Yeah.
The more we tell ourselves that we're so tired and we're so exhausted, guess what? We get more tired and more exhausted and we have less energy. So I think learning to manage our energy, and again, both from the strategic place of, am I eating the right foods? Am I getting enough water? Am I sleeping well? Have I been to the doctor to check all my levels and my blood tests and all my body to make sure that my body is working well? Am I working out or going for walks? Like, how am I taking care of my physical body? Because that is, and the other part that I think is fundamental is, what is the story I keep telling myself every day? Am I telling myself every day, I'm so tired, I can't do this, I'm exhausted, I'm just gonna get through the day, I can't wait to get till it's Friday. That is sucking the energy out of you. So people are like, but how don't I say that I'm tired when I'm feeling tired? And I was like, well, if you're really feeling tired, then pause everything, go take a nap and rest. But if you're saying you're tired or you're feeling tired and you're not gonna rest, then don't tell yourself you're tired. Tell yourself, you know what? I'm capable of doing this. You know what? I have energy within me to figure this out. I am gonna bring it up. Because all of us have been, and Sana, tell me if you've been in a situation like this where you feel, I remember a lot in business school that we were working on a project that we had to present the next day, and it was like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And I was like, with my classmates, and my eyes were closing. And I was like, my God, I'm so exhausted. Like, this is so hard. And then we would push through, and then 7 a.m. we had to present. And the moment that we're presenting in front of a class or in front of professors, boo, the energy was there. Like we
Yes. Yes.
un yeah, right? We felt that. So why? Why? It's because we have an ability to generate energy from within. Now,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that always doing that and not resting. Of course, you have to incorporate rest in your life. But if you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I have to send all these emails and I have to do these follow ups and I'm so tired, I'm so exhausted and I don't want to do this, it's going to be awful. But if you're like, you know what? Yes, I have 10 emails to do. Maybe it's not the thing I love doing the most, but I have it within me. I'm going to focus. I'm going to get this done. Then you generate this energy that you go through. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is, when most of my clients are high performing, right? Like they are very fast, very smart. They get a lot of stuff done in very short periods of time. But what happens is that they don't know how to delegate. They don't know how to train others to do the work for them. And the more you want to scale your business and grow, you have to become very good at delegating. So that would be another skill set that I would like, if someone wants to continue growing and more than a ritual, I would get very practical. It's like, okay, let's see what's the work, what's essential for you to do, what is your zone of genius, where are you adding the most value, and let's find other people that can do other things. How are you taking care of your body, and what are you telling yourself? With those three things, you're gonna be, you're gonna take your business to whatever level you want.
Wow. And especially I loved the second point you mentioned. It's kind of channelizing the parents' energy. I mean, you have worked hard your entire day, but when it comes to your kids, you once again get that extreme amount of energy to help them and see that a love and warmth in their eyes. So yeah, I loved all the three ways you mentioned. So brilliant, brilliant, Karina. This has been such an enlightening, heartwarming conversation with practical insights and strategies as well. And I guess it has been a masterclass in both the art and science of leadership. So thank you so much for this one.
Well, thank you, Sana. Really, I appreciate giving me this space to share things I feel so passionate about, and that I deeply believe that anyone who applies them, they're gonna see results and difference in their lives and their business.
Definitely. Personally, I'm taking so many takeaways from this conversation, listeners, and I'm very much confident that you are also taking a lot of golden nuggets. And Kalina, if our listeners would like to wish for more such golden nuggets from you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so there's two recommendations I would make. First, I have a podcast in which I talk about all these topics every week. It's called The Visionaries Pursuit. It's in any platform where you like to listen to your podcast. And again, it's 20 minutes episodes. They're pretty short and they're focused on one of these strategies and many more that I teach. And the other thing is you can go to my website, which is CARO, the first four letters of my first name, Caro, and my last name, Zuleta, ZULETA.com. And there you can see all the offerings I have.
Brilliant. I have all the details mentioned in the show notes. And listeners, that was Karina Zuleta for all of you. And once again, Karina, thank you so much for reminding us that scaling a vision, it requires not just a B plan, but or a business plan, but a grounded, aligned, and unshakable self. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to all of my lovely listeners out there, if this episode has stirred up something in you, take a moment today to ask. Do a bit of self introspection. What unseen forces helping or hindering my next move? Until next time, keep blending bold strategy with soulful presence. This is BizBlend. I'm your host, Sana, where your vision meets its power. Thank you.